At 82, I thought I'd seen it all. But there's one decision I carry with me like a heavy weight. A choice I made believing it was for the best. Moving into a nursing home. My family meant well. They said I'd be safe, cared for, and surrounded by comfort. I believed them, but what I found inside those walls was far from comforting. If you're thinking about a nursing home, for yourself or someone you love, I ask you to listen. Really listen. Because there are 6 things I wish someone had told me before I made that decision. 6 truths that could change everything. Let's begin with the first regret, losing my independence. You know, if I had to name the very first regret that caught me off guard when I moved into a nursing home, it would be losing my independence. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in all the tiny, everyday freedoms I never thought twice about. Back when I lived at home, I decided when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my time. I had routines that felt like rituals. Morning tea by the window, folding laundry while humming old tunes, late-night reading in my favorite chair. Those small decisions gave my life structure, rhythm, and dignity. But inside the nursing home, that independence vanished quietly. Everything operated on someone else's schedule. Fixed meal times, lights out at the same hour every night, supervised activities you didn't sign up for. I remember wanting to take a walk one afternoon. Nothing fancy, just a little stroll to clear my head. But I was told I had to wait for someone to assist me. So I waited, and then I waited some more. Eventually, I just gave up and stayed seated in the lounge, watching others do the same. That's how it starts. You begin to adapt, not because you want to, but because pushing back gets exhausting. You stop asking for different food when you're served something you don't like. You stop requesting your favorite sweater when your clothes get mixed up in the laundry. You stop trying to rearrange your room in a way that feels more like you. And without even noticing, you begin to shrink your expectations. Your world becomes smaller. The first time I woke up in that unfamiliar bed, I reached for my book, the one I always kept on my nightstand. But it wasn't there. Neither was my nightstand, or my favorite lamp, or anything that made the room feel like mine. I sat there for a moment, looking at the bare walls, and I felt something sink inside me. This wasn't my space. This wasn't my time. And for the first time in my life, I felt like a guest in my own routine. Now, don't get me wrong. The staff were kind. They were doing their job. But even kindness can't replace control. When someone else decides when you shower, what you eat, or even how warm your room should be, it starts to feel less like living and more like existing. The structure that's meant to protect you can quietly become a cage. The hardest part? Once you let go of your independence, getting it back is almost impossible. You lose muscle from moving less. You lose confidence from always waiting on others. And soon, you start to believe you can't do things on your own anymore, even if, deep down, you probably still could. So if you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you truly ready to surrender the little freedoms that make life yours? Because once they're gone, it's not just your schedule you miss, it's your sense of self. If losing my independence was the first regret I felt, then feeling forgotten was the one that cut the deepest, and not because anyone stopped loving me. That's the hardest part to explain. The people in my life still cared. They just stopped showing it in the same ways. The world outside didn't pause when I moved in. It kept spinning without me. When I first arrived at the nursing home, there were visits, regular ones. My daughter came every week, bringing soup and fresh gossip. My grandkids would pop in on Sundays, filling the room with stories and noise. I clung to those moments like lifelines. They made me feel tethered to the life I left behind. But then, slowly, life got busy. For them, work piled up. School projects came first. My daughter started calling instead of visiting. Then even the calls started to space out. And soon enough, the days started blending into one another, quiet and long. I'd sit in the common room, watching the door, hoping maybe today would be the day someone remembered. It's a strange kind of loneliness. You're surrounded by people, staff, residents, nurses, but you still feel invisible. You become part of the furniture, another figure in a wheelchair, another name on the chart. You hear other residents ask the same questions. Has anyone seen my son today? Did my daughter call? And you realize You're all hoping not to be forgotten, even if no one says it out loud. Holidays are the hardest. People promise they'll come, and sometimes they do. But often, something comes up. Travel plans change. Weather gets in the way, and you sit there, dressed nice, holding a card or a gift that never gets given. I can't count how many times I've watched the clock, telling myself, it's still early. Maybe they're just running late. There was one evening, particularly quiet, when I picked up my phone to call my son. My finger hovered over his name. I stared at it for a while, and then I put the phone down. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be that call he declined because he was busy or tired. I told myself, maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow didn't come. And that's the truth no one talks about. When you're no longer visible in someone's daily life, it becomes easier for them to forget that you're waiting, that you still want to be seen, heard, hugged, not just on birthdays or holidays, but on a random Tuesday afternoon, for no reason other than love. So if you're considering a nursing home, really consider this. Can you live with the silence? Not all the time, but enough of it to matter. Enough that the days stretch out like shadows with no one there to shorten them. And if you have someone you love in a place like this, call them, visit them, even if just for 10 minutes. Because that moment, that effort, it can make a lonely person feel remembered again. Another deep regret that crept in quietly after I moved into the nursing home was losing my sense of purpose. At first, I didn't even realize it was happening. I thought, this will be nice. Everything done for me, no chores, no pressure, just rest. But what I quickly learned is that when life stops asking anything of you, it also stops giving very much in return. Back in my own home, I had a reason to wake up every day. I had small but meaningful responsibilities. Watering the plants, making my bed, cooking breakfast, even if it was just toast and tea. I'd sit by the window and write in my journal. I'd sweep the kitchen floor, fold my towels just the way I liked them. None of it was glamorous, but all of it mattered. It gave me a rhythm, a structure that made each day feel full and mine. When I moved into the nursing home, all of those small roles disappeared. Meals were delivered, laundry was done, rooms were cleaned. I didn't have to lift a finger, and at first, I didn't. I told myself I deserved this rest, but after a while, the days started to stretch. Long and empty. I'd sit for hours not doing anything, not because I didn't want to, but because there was nothing to do. No one needed me anymore. That was the most painful realization. There was a man I befriended, George. He'd been a carpenter his whole life. At home, even in his 80s, he'd build birdhouses and fix broken cabinets for neighbors. His hands were always moving. But here, there were no tools, no workbenches, nothing to repair. I remember him sitting beside me one afternoon, staring at his palms. He said, "I don't know what to do with these anymore." I'll never forget that. When you stop having a role in your own life, a reason to move, to plan, to give, your spirit begins to dim. You don't feel needed. You don't feel useful. And no matter how much comfort or care you're given, that feeling is hard to replace. Some residents tried puzzles or joined group games like bingo. And while that helps a little, it's not the same as caring for something that depends on you. A plant, a Peter, a home, a purpose. I tried to fight it. I asked if I could help fold napkins in the dining room or assist with delivering mail to other residents. But policies were strict. Liability this, safety that. So I sat, I waited, I watched. What I didn't expect was how quickly that strength would begin to fade. At first, it felt like a relief. Meals were brought to me. No more bending to clean the bathtub or standing at the stove for an hour. I had a button to press for assistance, and people came when I needed them. That kind of support felt like a gift. But what no one told me, what no one ever says out loud, is that when you stop using your body begins to forget how to be used. I started sitting more and moving less. At home, I would walk back and forth to the mailbox or stretch in the kitchen while making breakfast. Here, most of the day was spent in a chair. I stopped standing for long periods, and when I tried, my legs felt stiff, my balance uncertain. Little by little, my confidence slipped away. I started holding on to the walls for support. I asked for assistance more than I needed. Not because I couldn't do something, but because I was afraid I couldn't. And once that fear sets in, it multiplies. It doesn't just live in your knees or your back. It settles into your mind. There was a woman who arrived shortly after I did. Alice. She was lively, determined, full of fire. She insisted on walking daily and scoffed at the idea of using a wheelchair. "I'm not ready to slow down," she'd say. But over time, I noticed she began skipping her walks. She leaned more on her walker. Then, one day, she was wheeled to dinner instead of walking. I asked her if she was okay, and she said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." That's exactly what it felt like. Because when you stop challenging your muscles, even just a little, they stop working for you. And when the nursing home makes everything so easy, it becomes easy to lose everything you've worked so hard to maintain. I wish I had known. I wish someone had said, "Keep moving, no matter what." I would have set a daily routine, even if it was just walking the halls or doing stretches in my room. I would have asked for physical therapy. I would have pushed myself more, even on the tired days. If you're considering a move to a nursing home, ask yourself, and your caregivers, how will you stay physically active? Because the systems that care for you are not always designed to strengthen you. And once your muscles go, once your body stops responding, it's a long, hard road to get it back, if you can at all. Another regret that weighs heavier with time is something I never really thought about before entering a nursing home: the quiet, constant loss of privacy and dignity. At home, these things felt so normal, so automatic, that I never imagined a life without them. I never imagined needing permission to do the most personal things, or feeling like I had to earn space to simply be myself. At home, I had privacy. I could close my bedroom door. I could sit quietly in the bath for as long as I wanted. I could choose to answer the phone or not. I could be alone when I needed it, and with others when I chose. That sense of control, of ownership over my time, my space, and my body gave me dignity. In the nursing home, that privacy dissolved. From the moment I arrived, I became part of a schedule. My days were no longer my own. Staff would come in and out of my room, sometimes with a knock, sometimes without waiting for an answer. My medical details were discussed within earshot of strangers. My clothes were labeled and sorted into shared laundry cycles. Sometimes they came back missing. Sometimes they didn't come back at all. Simple things became complicated. If I wanted to shower, I had to wait for a scheduled time. If I needed help in the bathroom, I had to press a button and wait. And even when someone arrived, I'd feel the ache of embarrassment rise in my chest. Not because anyone was rude. They weren't. But because asking for help with the most private things in life never stops feeling like surrender. I had a roommate. I was lucky. She was kind, respectful, quiet. But not everyone is so fortunate. I've heard stories of roommates who are loud, messy, confused, even aggressive. You don't get to choose who you share a room with, and if you don't like it, there's not much you can do. You learn to adapt, to tolerate, to hide pieces of yourself just to avoid conflict. Even the way you're spoken to can change your sense of self. I've been called sweetie and honey more times than I can count. It sounds harmless, maybe even affectionate, but over time, it feels like you're being talked down to, like you're a child who needs managing, not a full-grown adult with a lifetime of experience and pride. Dignity isn't just about physical needs. It's about emotional respect. It's about being treated like a person, not a patient. It's about being trusted to make decisions and being supported when you do. I didn't realize how many little moments contributed to my sense of dignity until they started slipping away. When someone helps you get dressed without asking how you want to look. When a staff member walks in while you're praying, or crying, or simply needing silence. When you feel like just another name on the morning list, rather than a soul with stories, preferences, and pride. If you're considering moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, how important is your space, your privacy, your right to say, "Not right now"? Because once those lines blur, it's hard to draw them again. And dignity, once chipped away, is not easy to rebuild. Perhaps the most surprising regret of all, and the one that no one ever talked about, was realizing just how hard it would be to leave once I moved into a nursing home. I walked in thinking it was temporary, a short stay, just until I felt stronger, more stable, more supported. I even told my neighbors, "I'll be back before the summer's out." I truly believed that. But what I didn't understand, what almost no one explains, is that the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. At first, everything felt manageable. I had left my house intact. My favorite things were still there. I asked my daughter not to sell anything, just in case. And for the first few weeks, I told myself every day, you can go back whenever you want. But days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. And gradually, the ties to my home life began to loosen. My house sat empty, and it became harder for my children to maintain it. Bills were missed. Dust collected. They started making decisions. Helpful ones, I am sure, but ones I wasn't included in. Some furniture was given away. My old clothes packed into storage. I remember one day my daughter casually mentioned that they were thinking of renting out the house. And just like that, something I had built my entire life around became a property, not a home. Then there was my health. I was still mobile when I came in, but over time, as I mentioned before, I got used to not moving as much. Meals were delivered, laundry folded for me, everything within reach. I didn't have to push myself, and so I didn't. Slowly, my muscles weakened, my energy dipped. Things I used to do without thinking, like cooking, walking to the mailbox, carrying a bag of groceries, now seemed overwhelming. When I finally said out loud, I think I want to go home, I was met with worried faces. Are you sure? They asked. Is that safe? And I didn't know how to answer, because honestly, I wasn't sure anymore. I'd lost the confidence I once had. I wasn't even certain I could manage on my own. That's the part that breaks you, realizing that somewhere along the way, the option to return quietly slipped away, and you didn't even notice it was happening. I've seen it happen to others too. Residents who came in with plans to leave once they got stronger, but their homes were sold. Their families adjusted. Life moved on, and soon, they no longer had a home to go back to. One woman I knew kept her suitcase packed under her bed, a symbol of hope, but it sat there for years, untouched. So here's what I wish someone had told me. Once you enter a nursing home, you're not just crossing a threshold of care, you're crossing into a new kind of life. And getting out isn't just about walking away, it's about reclaiming strength, stability, and sometimes even permission from others. That's not easy. If you're considering this move, or helping someone else consider it, please have the conversation now. What's the plan to return home? If needed, will the home be kept? What support systems will still be there? Because once you give up your environment, your strength and your autonomy, getting them back takes more than you expect. Looking back on everything now, if there's one thing I truly wish I knew before moving into a nursing home, it's how much of myself I'd have to let go. Not all at once, and not in some big dramatic moment, but gradually, quietly, piece by piece. I don't regret aging. In fact, I'm proud of the life I've lived. I've loved, worked, raised a family, and watched the world change in ways I never imagined. But I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option when things got hard. I regret not asking more questions, not pushing for better solutions, not fighting a little harder to stay in my own home just a little longer. When I first walked through the doors, I expected comfort, safety, peace. I expected to feel cared for, and in many ways I did. But what I didn't expect, what no one really tells you, is what I would have to trade in exchange for that care. I traded my independence, the ability to decide how I spent my time, what I ate, when I slept, or even when I walked outside. I gave up privacy, those sacred moments of silence, solitude, and self-care that used to belong only to me. I lost my sense of purpose, the little daily tasks that made me feel useful, needed, alive. And then there was the slow, steady decline of my health. Not because of sickness or injury, but because life in the nursing home is often too easy, too sedentary, too predictable. Without challenge, my strength faded. Without movement, my body stiffened. And without those familiar routines, my world became smaller than I ever thought possible. But what haunts me the most is how hard it became to leave. I walked in thinking I could walk out just as easily, but over time, the option to go home felt less and less realistic. My house had changed, my body had changed, my confidence had changed, and eventually, what was once temporary became permanent. That's what I wish someone had told me. This isn't just a new place to live, it's a new way of life. One that's harder to walk away from than most people realize. So if you're standing at this crossroads now, or helping a loved one who is, please pause. Look at every alternative. Ask the hard questions. Could home care work? Could family help more? Are there local programs that offer support without full relocation? Because once you move in, going back isn't always as simple as packing a bag and heading home. I don't say this to make you fearful. I say it because I want you to be prepared. I want you to understand what's truly at stake, not just the care you receive, but the life you're leaving behind. And if you're still in your home, still managing your own days, cherish it, protect it, do everything you can to hold on to it for as long as you can. Because that independence, that privacy, that purpose, those aren't small things. They are the very foundation of a life well lived. Thank you for spending this time with me. If any part of my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, even just a sentence, a word, a moment you connected with, because your voice matters. And together, our stories can help others feel seen, heard, and understood. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss future stories like this. Your support helps keep these conversations alive. And as always, stay strong, stay kind, and stay blessed.